Thank you for joining us. My name is Mason, and I am the COO at the Lobular Breast Cancer Alliance. And today I want to thank Leslie and Kathleen for joining us to talk about your new LBCA Local Advocacy Team, the Lobular Breast Cancer Advocates of Cascadia. Did I get that right?
You
Yep,
did.
you did.
Excellent, excellent. So I would like to ask each of you to tell us a little bit about you and your connection to the lobular breast cancer and to LBCA, and then what has compelled you to start an LBCA local advocacy team. I guess let's start with Kathleen because we know you've been LBCA's local advocacy team volunteer coordinator and you're very familiar with this program. So let's get started.
Thanks, Mason. Yeah, so my story with regard to lobular breast cancer is that, like so many, I had kind of a surprise diagnosis after pathology came back from my mastectomy for DCIS and learned that there were just a few millimeters of invasive lobular. So that was my only invasive diagnosis. So I never had the you have cancer. I only had the you have precancer talk. And then I had the you had cancer talk, which I think is really common in the lobular community for those of us to find out either that we had something we didn't realize we had, or we had a lot more of it than we realized in the beginning before we had surgery. My part of my story is also that my mom was recently diagnosed with metastatic breast cancer. We don't know if it was lobular because it wasn't tested very well in the end, but she was near the end of her natural life anyway and decided not to have any kind of treatment or testing or scanning. But she also recently passed away. So I'm a big advocate for metastatic awareness and support and research as well. That's a huge part of my story now because of my mom. But the reason I guess that I wanted to start a local advocacy team, was because I was so inspired leading this new project and being a part of the formation of it, being a part of all these conversations as new advocates found local partners to start up teams with, both in South Carolina and in the DC area. I could really see myself doing it as well. And I could see things coming together as I met Leslie and Holly first. And then it's funny because Leslie and Holly don't live real close to me. Leslie lives in Southwest Washington and Holly lives in Portland. I'm out in Oregon wine country, an hour away from the center of Portland where Holly is. But in the last 6 months, I found through my work on YouTube and just connections with networking elsewhere, I found one partner for each of us in my own community. And so I found someone here in the wine country for me to work with locally and found delightful woman Lisa for Leslie to work with. And they've become good friends and really hit it off. And then Holly hasn't yet met her local person that's in the same neighborhood that she's in Portland, Mia, because Mia's just been going through lots of treatment and surgery herself this in the last few weeks. So we're really new and we haven't all gotten together yet, actually, on a Zoom even. So this is really the very, very fresh start of our new community of three little teams within one bigger team. So Cascadia was the name that we came up with because Leslie actually travels up to Seattle for her treatment every month or consults and treatment every month. And so we wanted to encompass Washington State as well as Northwest Oregon, which is where we all live.
Excellent. Thank you, Kathleen.
Yeah.
And how about you, Leslie?
Okay, me. My first diagnosis was de novo metastatic lobular breast cancer, and that was in May of 2017. And it was a crazy diagnosis because I actually had a normal mammogram, and a voice came to my head that repeatedly came to my head and said, "You have cancer, you have cancer." And I just thought I was crazier than a bed bug. But I listened to my voice because it was just so strong. And indeed, though my mammogram had said I did not have cancer, I was found to have metastatic lobular breast cancer. And so I was in a complete state of shock, and it took me years before I could find my footing, to be honest. And during this time, I was always looking at the Lobular Breast Cancer Association, and they were like oh, thank you. I need this information. I need to know where to look. I need some support because I knew no one. I knew no one that had lobular breast cancer. And all my experiences with breast cancer people were, yeah, I'm cured, and it just didn't connect in a way that I needed. So I hung low for many years, and then I became so in love with the Lobular Breast Cancer Association. We made a small donation, my husband and I, and Lori contacted me, and I just knew this is where I need to be. So that was, even though I was diagnosed in 2017, that was in January of 2024. And she asked me to tell my story. And that was such an empowering activity. I had never been asked my story. I was always shortchanged. Oh, it didn't really happen that way. Did you really have a good mammogram, et cetera, et cetera. And it was just my chance to tell my story with no questions as I saw it. And it was so powerful. And I just kind of grew in love with LBCA, started volunteering with various things. But it's when I met Kathleen that because I met her in person, that I felt such a strong connection. I can't tell you how beautiful it is to meet someone face to face who has had a similar experience, and she's also a delightful human being. So together, I just felt such love, and she introduced me to the woman in my local area that has lobular breast cancer, who is a doll as well. And all of a sudden, this sense of power came to me, like, oh my gosh, there's a group of us here locally. We can be heard, we can support each other, and that's kind of where I'm at.
That's amazing. Thank you both. Well, I'm excited to hear more about what you hope to accomplish in your local communities, and why it's so helpful to be affiliated with LBCA, and the support that we can provide local advocates. So, do either of you want to talk about that a little bit? It might be different in your different regions.
Yeah, I'll talk about
Kathleen?
that. Yeah, so I feel like the way that we got together naturally in October for the first time in person really kind of set the tone for what I see us doing together. So we had a celebration of Global Lobular Breast Cancer Awareness Day on October 15th, and it was a very informal gathering. We didn't really have a real solid plan, but we had a location that we were going to show up at. We couldn't get inside the hospital that Lonnie and I go to, but we did get a little table reserved outside the Starbucks across the street from the hospital. The hospital that we go to just takes months to reserve and get things okayed, especially when it comes to talking about cancer, I think. So it was difficult, but Sasha, my oncologist, did end up getting us this little table at Starbucks, and we got some posters put up at Starbucks, and she shared some news in her clinic about it. And so we didn't know who was going to show up. We didn't know what it would look like, if it would be more conversations with the public that were stopping to get flyers, or if it would just be us. And I didn't even know how many advocates would show up. But we had two, Lonnie and Leslie showed up, and we met each other in person. And Sasha came, and I thought Sasha would be there for 20 minutes, something like that. But she stayed for over an hour, answered every single question that we had about lobular breast cancer and the rumors that we heard and things coming up in our own cases. And she was just so generous with her time and her person. She wasn't keeping herself estranged from us as a person. She was our neighbor. She was our friend. She was right there in the trenches with us. And so I feel like we kind of chartered this new partnership with her. We're actually already planning next October's event with Sasha, and it'll be a bigger event. But I also feel like she's given us permission to come to her for ideas and support and to answer questions so that we don't have to be, as we're going out to educate other patients, we don't have to be the go-to source of information in our area. She can be the go-to source of information, which I think makes us all more comfortable. So I'm not sure all of the ways that we will partner with Sasha or have gatherings for patients and non-patient neighbors in our individual areas. But I know that we'll get together with her on the 15th. And we did get some space and a time to get on-site in the hospital system that we were trying to last October, Providence. We have a space reserved in September that we're going to do another talk with Sasha about lobular together. So we have 2 events planned and all kinds of ideas. Maybe Leslie can share some of her ideas.
Thanks, Kathleen. Um, yeah, so I live so close to Portland. I feel this close association to Portland, but I do live here in Washington. So I think what I'm viewing our LAT to do is, yes, I want to be deeply involved with what we're doing in Portland. And it's so exciting having Sasha so near to us and so accessible and so kind and giving of her time. I think that's really important. But because I also travel north to Seattle, I have this feeling of belonging in Seattle too. So it is my hope that we can get a group of us together who are getting treatment in Seattle so we can get a lobular event in October 15th in Seattle. But I'm really looking right now for other people to join me in this journey, and I'm hoping we can find enough people. But that's all starting. And local ideas. Yeah, Kathleen, you're the one that inspired me. So you had mentioned talking to Breast Friends. That's a local support group here, and getting your foot in the door there to talk a little bit about lobular. And all of a sudden, because we're part of LAT, I have this overwhelming sense of power, not in a hubris sense, but just like, oh, I can do something. It's an empowering sense. And so I was at a local event for Pink Lemonade here this Sunday, and I'm like, oh goodness, I'm going to talk to them about lobular breast cancer. So I came in with all these flyers that Lori had given me, and I offered to talk about lobular breast cancer, and even mentioned maybe Sasha would be interested in talking to the group. And I didn't know where it would go, but I felt, because now I was a part of something bigger, that sense of, should I be doing this or shouldn't? It didn't matter anymore. It's like, yes, I have the right to do this, and we'll see what happens. And it turns out the CEO of this group is going to talk to Lori. And I don't know if it'll mean anything, if anything will get started, but I think there's this intrinsic power I feel now. And I think brainstorming will find some really interesting things we can do together.
Wonderful. Thanks for sharing about those potential partnerships. It's exciting. Is there anything that surprised you about getting your LAT launched, and what has gone well? And do you have any tips for others who might be considering launching a local advocacy team in their area?
I think what surprised me is that we just had this organic popping up of people in these various 3 places. And it was just confirmation to me that it was time to start a local LAT. So it was awkward for me to do that because I was also like convening the meetings for LAT, and I didn't know if that would be a conflict of interest. But it turned out that Melissa was there to take over that just at the right time. So the timing was wonderful. I think the tip that I would give is just to be patient with your group if you're starting a local advocacy team. Because I think we're all in the breast cancer community, especially those of us early and those of us who are in metastatic spaces and diagnoses, we are needing a lot of patience to provide the time to naturally come together. So I don't know when our LAT will meet in person, and that's okay with me. I'm not trying to push to make that happen. It's really important to me that everyone knows that their health and their sense of just keeping stress low and keeping their well-being high is our priority. And so if we break off into little contingents and work together, maybe 3 of us on something, and then, next year, maybe 4 or 5 of us can do that same thing. But just having a creative and loose sense of obligation and urgency. I know we're definitely going to do things in September and October, but the ramping up process can be really slow because one of our members is just coming away from mastectomy. And, Leslie's got a really busy schedule traveling up to Seattle periodically, and Lisa's traveling quite a bit too. So we just need to adapt and we can't compare ourselves to the next local advocacy team because our needs are different. And with each added member, I think your needs become more complex as a group too. So I love that talking to Lori, the executive director of LBCA, about our team, And I was asking kind of what's the minimum requirement for how often we meet and do an action or, do some kind of campaign. And she just gave me permission to do very little and, to be very, very open to the needs of the team, which I was surprised by that too, actually, because I'm like, Miss Productivity, let's get things done. But when you have a bigger group of folks with high needs and health concerns, you really need to be adaptive and responsive to those needs, I think.
Yeah, Kathleen,
Great.
I'd also add there's some beautiful things you did that made it easier for me to say I wanted to be a part of the lad. I think I mean, we live quite a distance apart. It's maybe from your house to my house an hour and a half with no traffic.
Yep.
So, the idea that we have to meet together is kind of burdensome personally. In person, I guess is what I really meant to say. But the fact that you allowed us to meet online, and then we occasionally get to see each other, was beautiful. And it is truly, even though it's hard, it is in that personal connection of meeting you that I knew I really want to participate. So I think bringing people together and giving us we didn't have to be together to say, here's what we're going to accomplish today in our lab. We're here together just as women with lobular breast cancer who care and want to make a difference. And all we needed to do at that moment was care for each other and what was happening. And I think that's really the roots I see of our LAT just being there for each other and caring as a starting point, because that's so, so critical. And then I thought equally beautiful was instead of saying, okay, that to-do list you sometimes think of in a business sense, we're going to accomplish A, B, and C. When you came back and said, let's just spend some time educating ourselves about lobular breast cancer, and we watched a video together. It was as simple as being in a remote location, watching a Zoom uh, streamed video, and just knowing that we're all here learning together, and we need this for us to proceed was also beautiful. So those, I think, are two baby steps that I really appreciated you taking.
Great. Thank you. Well, I know Kathleen has been involved with the monthly LAT meetings that LBCA has been hosting for anyone who has expressed interest in local advocacy generally, or those who might think they want to create a LAT. But can you talk a bit about, how being part of that process for both of you, if you attended meetings, Leslie, or multiple meetings, how that worked for you and how it helped you think about what you might want to do as a formal group.
Yeah, so the LAT cohort meetings, they're monthly. Right now they're on the first Thursday, and we have just gotten to know our faces and our voices there a little bit, and allows us to see who's in our area. So I could see Leslie on the screen and I could see Holly on the screen for a number of months. And that allowed me to reach out to them and have conversations with them about timing, whether they've had space in their lives to do anything more. Um, but yeah, and then we started talking about what we would do as kind of our foundational work before we formed our lat. So I feel like it's not just a good place to get stretched and educated and supported as an individual advocate, which it definitely is when you don't have anyone else in your area. The cohort meeting is a great place for that. Not everyone just automatically has another lobular patient that wants to be an advocate in their area. So we can get ideas and encouragement from other people doing single solitary actions across the country. And that's how we met, and that's how we started for the first year. And that allowed Leslie and I to have a good foundation of trust and common mission. And I think that it's a wonderful kind of ramping up to kind of sprouting out and starting your own grassroots team locally. And then now we're starting to do individual mini campaigns that folks can just take. We have a list of actions that you can just take out into your community and check this action off the list. Get the brochures from the LBCA and take them and drop them off at your local clinic or library. There are things we can do as individuals to get rolling and to become stronger advocates while we're waiting for a local team to emerge.
Yeah, I have not been able to participate as frequently as Kathleen in the monthly meetings. I have a support group for lobular breast cancer patients that I help facilitate on the same day. So sometimes Thursdays are a little bit challenging. But the days I have gone, the benefit I see is one, just seeing a bunch of people, knowing we're working on something together, it really is heartwarming to me. And sometimes when I'm looking for some hope that this disease will change, just knowing that there's a bunch of us that are meeting to work on that really helps me. And then it's listening to people's individual stories. Sometimes I feel like my creativity around advocacy just isn't there. I just don't know what advocates do. It isn't my background. I used to have a technical degree. Well, I do have a technical degree. I used to be a technical person, and then I taught, but like, what does an advocate do? It's kind of this bewildering subject to me. I'm like, oh, I don't like fundraising. No. And I didn't know what else to do. So listening to what people can do has been really good for helping me see, oh, there's a wide range of stuff you can do in advocacy. So it's been helpful for me, someone who didn't enter this world with a lot of knowledge on advocacy. And let's see, what else? Oh, like we talked about recently, the governor's proclamation. I was wondering how to do that for Washington. And I thought, oh, that's something I'm going to have to carry on my shoulders, my own. And I'm Googling the portal, looking, what do I put in? And I'm saying, where is, how, I didn't understand the language. I didn't know what I was going to put in there. And then at our recent meeting, we talked about this, and I was like, oh, I have support for people trying to do the same thing. And that was really valuable for me.
Great. Well, thank you both so much. I think that conversation of the monthly meeting actually is a great segue to just talking a little bit about what we have on our website. I think at the end of this recording, we'll put on a slide, the URL where people can learn more about LAT resources on the LBCA website. And hot off the press, you all have your own email address for people who may want to reach out to you. So we will put that on the screen at the end, but it is cascadialat@lbca.org. And if you have any interest in reaching out to Kathleen or Leslie, this would be the way to do it.
Please
So
do.
any final, yeah, great. Any final words from either of you?
Just don't be intimidated. Jump in and try a small action on behalf of educating others about lobular breast cancer, and you'll see it's really easy. You don't have to be an expert. You don't have to have any experience. Just telling your story is enough.
Yeah, I agree. Thanks, Kathleen.
Well, thank you both and to everyone involved with the Cascadia advocates. And we look forward to your future activities and hearing more. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Mason.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Megan.
Kathleen.